Hello everyone, this is the KingKong LDARC ET100 version 2, featuring 1103 7800 kV motors. We've got an F4 flight controller with an OSD, 12 amp 4-in-1 ESC, 800 TV line camera, power switchable VTX, 25 milliwatts and 100 milliwatts with 16 channels. There's no smart audio. 1935 props, prop guards, an LED, a buzzer, comes with a JST for your battery connection, a rubber band to secure your battery. Bottom plate appears to be about 3 millimeters. Motor post, I'm getting 104 millimeters. It weighs a little over 80 grams. With the stock battery, it weighs over 108 grams. It comes with 3 spare canopies, 2 sets of extra props, receiver instruction manual, quad instruction manual, stickers, and a battery. As we get into the flight here, I did do most of my flying inside because it's been so cold, kind of unseasonably cold. The temperature has been down in the 20s, and usually we don't see down in the 20s until we get into December and January. Typically, we still have some 40 and 50 degree days. I did catch a 43 degree day, and we'll get into that temperature here in just a bit. And I'm flying it inside. It's more proof of concept than anything else. The machine weighing at almost 80 grams, adding in the battery at 28 grams, we're looking at almost 110 grams. That's quite a bit to be flying inside. And if you have fragile knickknacks or pictures or TVs, it's going to be kind of sketchy flying this inside, because if you wreck with something weighing that amount, it might cause some damage. So you want to be careful and make sure that you've got clearance from everyone you live with in order to be able to fly this inside. Of course, if you have a large gymnasium, or I did hear about one of you has a former zoo where they keep the birds that's indoor, that's now open to the public, and you're organizing drone races in there. And that seems like a really good spot for something like this. Of course, you could go without prop guards because of the nature of the place. But if you have a large indoor space, you could fly it around in there. I am flying it around in my house, but again, I would say use caution in that case. You'll obviously not see any of my family members here because I figured if I had a bad crash and it broke anything, I might be able to fix it and get away with it. So I did fly usually over my lunch hour or in the evening time when everybody else is asleep. And as you can tell, it's very noisy. This isn't something that you're going to be able to fly and it's not going to bother someone. I think the combination of the bullnose props and the hoops on this kind of amplify that noise to where it's going to be noticeable. And I think even if you're flying at a small park, most people by the size of it probably wouldn't give you any fits, but the noise might attract some attention. So something to be aware of. I do fly it outside. We're going to get into a couple different little flying concepts. I did notice that the frame is a little bit flexible. It's not a rigid frame, but I don't think it really has much of an impact in flight. I could be wrong there. Maybe I'm just not sensitive enough to notice it. But I do notice that I can bend the carbon fiber a little bit. The camera does snap into the canopy, and if you wanted more camera angle, you could do a modification pretty simply, I think, which is some hot glue and some wire snips to cut the angle that it snaps into a little bit differently. I do think we're going to have about a 3-minute flight inside. We don't have a full outdoor flight to look at. It's more of a sample that we're looking at outside, but it's funny because I wasn't flying with my typical rates, and I didn't notice that until I got an opportunity to fly outside. So I didn't have a whole lot of time outside with this particular quad. As I mentioned, I did fly it inside most of the time because the weather has been so poor. Here's our outdoor flight. I have the throttle in the upper left-hand corner, just as I did for the indoor flight. I am kind of surprised that I wasn't worse on the sticks in my flight than normal because I am using the stock rates. I failed to change those. And you may also see some snow and frost still on the ground. This particular day, I kind of had to do all my outdoor flight in one day. I waited, I think, almost 10 days in order to get, here we're going to go into that dive. And this is a pretty mild dive, and you see that little washout right there. It was pretty mild, but I think if you went higher and you went more straight down, it would probably get a little bit worse. Mine was I was coming out of the dive relatively early just because of my position in the air. So this is probably going to suffer from washouts. Maybe you can tune that out, maybe you can't. My personal theory on that is it's kind of hit and miss. I've heard people talking about tuning that out with these machines that have hoops on them. But I have yet to see a lot of DVR confirming that. The Mobula 7 is about as close as I've seen, and that's basically through my own flight experience, that it's going to take some real attempts to bring out the washout. But this one does have it, so it's something you need to be aware of. I end the flight after doing some proximity here with the swing set, attempting to do a roll, and it didn't roll over as quickly as I expected, again, because I wasn't using my rates. And then we go down, and I kind of ended the general flying right there, just because it is wet. You know, like I said, we did have snow, and it has melted off a little bit, so I didn't want to damage the machine. I was kind of hopeful I would get another fairly warm day out, so I could fly it outside a little bit more. So right after this, I do the next part. Oh, there's our crash. Okay, so that's our flight for the outside. It looks like I only went about 2 minutes or so there. So this next flight, I'm going to pause it here, and I'm going to preface this a little bit. This isn't fair. Like I said, it's about 43 degrees out. And these prop guards, what I'm going to do is I'm going to run it into that tree. The tree you see kind of at about your 1 o'clock in the screen there. And I've got a field camera out there, and we'll take a quick look at that as well. But I did break the prop guards, and I say it's unfair because it was cold. Plastic doesn't do well when it's cold. And so I went back and I looked at the other video that I posted of the ET100, the original version, the version 1 that had kind of the dome canopy to it. And that was published on February 22nd. And you would think in February it was even colder, but if I look at the days previous, according to AccuWeather, in our location, the previous days up to the date that I published that video, we had temperatures anywhere from 52 to 65 degrees. So it's something we have to consider. It's not all lost that I broke it. We only do this twice into the tree. What we can learn from this is that if it's below 50 degrees, I wouldn't say you would go outside and expect those indestructible prop guards to stay indestructible. They're going to start getting brittle. I did take it inside and I let it warm up into the house temperature, which would be about 68 degrees. Hopeful that that would be enough, and then I brought it outside, hooked up a battery, sat down, and went flying. But I don't, plastic can cool down pretty quickly. So let's take a look at that. And then if you didn't see the ET100 video, I will show you the field camera from those crashes, because these are the same prop guards. In most cases, if you're above 50 degrees, I think it will be fine in order to run full bear into something that is immovable, and it will be fine. It will just bounce off, maybe bend up a prop. So we get running straight into this, and in the first flight here, while I go down, after a moment, I am able to rearm and fly away. So everything seems to be fine there. And I did notice that when you have a crash and the OSD comes up, you do have to go full stick, either left or right stick, in order to be able to rearm. And this is our fateful crash here. I can hear a prop has been fairly damaged, and I go ahead and I try to take off again, but something's amiss. It won't arm. So that's the end of that. We have to come pick it up. Here is the field cam footage from those crashes. And you can see from these crashes that it does bounce straight back up off the tree, so it is a direct hit, not a glancing blow. Now let's go back to the field cam, which I made a filming error. I'm not a videographer. I'm just a guy that makes YouTube videos. This is the field cam that I brightened up from the ET100, which has these same prop guards to give you an idea of the durability. Again, the temperature was probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 degrees or more warmer on the day that I did this. But crash after crash, just full bore into that tree, and it was fine. I do note in the specifications that this is listed at 100 milliwatt stock, and I do think in previous iterations there was a solder pad that you had to jumper, and unfortunately it's on the other side of the instructions that I found, so I'd have to cut it all the way out of there. But the solder pad on this is apparently jumpered, so it's running stock 100 milliwatts. Now if you get this in a different country, it's possible that they have an iteration that's only 25 milliwatts, so that's something I'm unsure about. Also notice that we do not have any lead protection here. I would encourage you to take a zip tie, run it down through there, kind of through here and then out around here to kind of secure your battery lead down, because it does attach directly to the ESC, and you don't want this ejecting. This little strap here, while it holds the battery in a crash like the ones I had with the tree, it is going to shoot out of there. And the damage that we have to the prop guards, only the front prop guards were damaged, and you can see this is completely damaged over here, and I actually lost a portion of it. It's damaged up here as well, that part right there, so there's not much left of this one. And then this one here is also damaged, and then this little part over here is damaged. Yeah, that's it. The rest of it is intact. I did also break up the canopy. Here's a take a look at the canopy here. You can see we've got some breakage up there. We've got some breakage down there. I show this to you, but I think what we've learned is it needs to probably be at least 50 degrees if you're going to go out and expect this thing to be as indestructible as KingKong or LDARC touts it to be. As I mentioned in a previous video, KingKong doesn't tend to iterate or make large iteration changes. So basically you have a very similar addition that what we've seen previously, but they changed the flight controller where it has an OSD, and we have a different canopy. They actually, if you didn't notice, they shipped the original canopy with this as well. So you can use that if you prefer that look, or if you want to paint one up, you've got spares to put in there. You can also fly this without prop guards. You do need to source some different screws. I didn't notice any shorter screws in the kit, so if you do want to fly this without prop guards and get some additional agility, lower the weight, maybe get some additional performance, you can do that. And what I think this seeks in the market is a great trainer. You know, I saw a posting by someone the other day saying that they bought one of these. It might have been the 110 or 115, 125, what have you. But they bought one of these ET series because when they got into 5-inchers, they were crashing it. And every time they crashed it, they broke something. And so they decided they would get something to train on and get more familiar on the sticks. So they said they bought this. They spent a few months flying this around. It was pretty much indestructible and bulletproof for them. And then they went back to 5-inch and had a lot more success. And I think that's appropriate. I think this is really what this is for, is if you're wanting to get into flying and maybe you want to be a little bit more cautious about how deep you jump in and how much performance-based choices you make on your first quad, this would be a pretty reasonable choice. Some people won't care for the JST end, and it is a little bit sketchy getting batteries with JST anymore. Hobby King does carry a large portion of their batteries of JST. It comes with a 450. I was flying it with a 600 that I got from MyLipo. I have a lot of MyLipo batteries. They're a little bit difficult to get, mainly because you do have to pay shipping. They're manufactured in Germany. They do have a warehouse in the US. I think they also have one in Australia. If you're not familiar with MyLipo, they're the manufacturer of the Tiny Whoop batteries, the ones that actually have Jesse Perkins' face on it. MyLipo makes those, and you'll notice on the label it does say MyLipo in real fine print. So they do make a good quality battery. Of course, the G&B batteries oftentimes have dual leads where you can get JST and XT30. And if you wanted to change out this to XT30, it'd be quite simple. Just, you know, lop off the end and then solder on your XT30, and then you're set to go. The last thing I'll bring to note here, and I don't know if you can see it with my lighting or not, but there is soft mounting right down in there. So we've got soft mounting all the way around the bottom on R4, but we don't have any soft mounting at the top. If you can see that pink nut, there's no O-ring or anything above that, and there's no O-rings between them. So our soft mounting is only at the bottom. We do have enough clearance in there that if you wanted to get a standard battery strap, that should not be an issue. So there are my thoughts on the KingKong ET100 version 2. I think it's a good trainer. I do appreciate the fact that they brought in the OSD and a canopy. That's really the only changes that you see from the first one. I did notice the pricing is about the same to actually even less for version 2. So if you're looking to get into quads, and if you don't have a lot of RC experience, this would be a solid one. Anyone in the ET series lines, and I'll link them down below so you can easily find those. I wouldn't suggest you buy it without a receiver. I would go ahead and just get the receiver. These sorts of things I wouldn't experiment with much in range, because the receivers in them aren't going to give you, I would say, 100 meters at most. Other than that, keep it in close. Do your training, get familiar with the sticks, how to fly, coordinating your turns, flips and rolls, all that fun stuff, maybe shooting some gaps, maybe playing in a playground, all sorts of fun things like that. And I do think this is probably the best prop guarded one to have for training purposes, the ET series. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise, please let me know in that section down below. I appreciate your time, and thanks for watching.